This is the Journey Podcast. We highlight the journeys of our guests, where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Let's join them on their journey. Well, welcome to the Journey Podcast. Today we have Charles, and he is the founder and CEO of Legislate. Charles founded Legislate in April of 2020, so just a short time ago. He founded this in Oxford to make contracts machine readable, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about what that means. He uses this patented knowledge graph technology, which he may or may not be able to tell us about because it's patented, but maybe he can give us a brief overview so we can understand what it does. Before founding Legislate, interestingly enough, Charles brought machine learning solutions to market for 3 years at Mind Foundry, a spin out from the University of Oxford. So Charles has seems like this hive mind of people behind him who have brought this to fruition. He's a graduate of the École Centrale de Lyon. I don't know why I put the accent on there. I'm American, so I can't say these words. So I am very personally excited about the product and service that Charles sells because I've experienced some of the pain, and you and I, Charles, talked about this before, that led to your product. So thanks for being on the journey today. How are you today?
I'm very well, Nate, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about this business, and then we can get into what led you into this.
Sure. So just to start, I want to say that I'm not a lawyer, but in my previous role, I created a lot of contracts. I negotiated contracts and just found it really frustrating how long it would take simple amendments to be made. It might take weeks, months before we'd reach a negotiated contract. We'd lose momentum, and in several occasions, we'd even lose the deals post-legal negotiation because it had taken too long. And simply because during time that buyers would get promoted, buyers would lose budget, or they'd lose interest. And time is the biggest killer of deals. So the fundamental reason why it would take so long is because the contracts were lawyer readable, meaning dependent on time-poor lawyers to approve the changes that were requested. And by making contracts machine readable using our knowledge graph, we can streamline the process without needing to get legal involved at every single step. And then post-signature, we make it very easy to search your contracts so that you can access the data they contain and answer questions like, how many of my employees are on a 30-day notice period? How many of my NDAs are coming up for renewal in the next 2-3 months? Because we have access to the data. So that's the idea behind Legislate. And as you said, we're 2.5 years old. We've got a web app, but more recently, we've started to offer an API version so that other software companies can start to integrate Legislate into their offering.
Wow, that's incredible. So I look at this like from a sales perspective, like, because I have a sales background of like, well, this would be great for sales contracts, but this is so much bigger than sales. This can be for HR. This can be for multiple different kind of silos that you can put this into. Am I correct?
Exactly. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges. The market is huge. There are so many types of contracts or documents that exist that can be streamlined. And so as a early stage startup, we need to focus. And the two main areas of focus for us right now are employment and property, but we definitely want to go into sales contracts and other more vertical specific agreements.
So what was your background? You said you were having this challenge with negotiating contracts and then it would fall through. What were you doing at that time when you saw this pain?
Sure. So I was doing business development at the startup, but business development at an early stage startup means doing many things. And especially it was when machine learning wasn't very well known. So a lot of my time was spent explaining what machine learning is to our customers, building proof of concepts with our app. And then once we had a proposal which was accepted, then it would be to then issue the contract. And the startup had a general counsel who's actually now our chief legal officer. And we had templates that were lawyer approved, but there'd always be some form of tailoring to get the template in shape for the client. So that would take time. And then it would just be a question of sending it over to the client and then waiting for feedback. But that could take days, weeks, and it all really depended on, first of all, how reactive the client's point of contact was in terms of sharing the updates with their legal team, and then also chasing their legal team. So it was a lot of waiting.
So if I could maybe simplify for myself, you were selling machine learning and you said, what if machine learning could make this easier for us? Am I correct about what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so I guess just take a step back. Knowledge graphs they're part of AI, but they're the opposite of machine learning in the sense that with machine learning, it's all about deducing patterns in data. Inducing patterns from data. Whereas with knowledge graphs, you're deducing patterns in data. And the key reason why you'd want to take a knowledge graph approach to contracts as opposed to a machine learning approach is machine learning models can never be 100% certain. Whereas with a contract, you need your contract to be 100% legal, 100% certain. And knowledge graphs, because it's all about representing knowledge and applying that knowledge to a data set, you can guarantee that it's 100% certain in the outcomes. And that's why we took that approach. But yeah, I think there are many applications of machine learning, just not exactly for contracts.
Yeah, a little bit more challenging. Just a couple more follow-up questions about the product itself. So can I have my attorney write a contract and then you guys can plug it into your system? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's the long-term vision. Right now, it's our legal team that does that.
Okay.
But we've got our own internal tool to add agreements to the system, and I do think we'll reach a state where we can open it up to legal teams.
Yeah, because I think that's probably the challenge from like an international perspective. You know, there's so many different countries, and even in the US, every state and sometimes every little area has different nuances that needs to be looked at. And so sometimes having somebody who's familiar with that region or state is why you need to work with an attorney. So I'm excited to see what the future of this product holds. It sounds really neat, but I know these things, it's like you take one small step forward to get to where you're going.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you, Charles. One of my questions I would say is, why did you become an entrepreneur? Isn't it just easier to keep working at the job you had before? Like, you could have put up with it. I assume you were making a living doing what you were doing before, and hopefully you're making a living now. But I know the struggle of being an entrepreneur and how you don't always make as much as you were hoping. Maybe long term we will.
Sure. I mean, I was enjoying my job and work, and it was a great environment to be in. And I'd say I learned everything at that company. But the problem became such a headache that it was making me less productive. And I just couldn't stop thinking about solving this problem. And I felt that ultimately, if I did stay at that company, the problem would keep occurring, and it would just mean more energy wasted on lost opportunities. And then I also felt that, yes, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I felt that if I did become an entrepreneur without solving this problem would, haunt me wherever I'd go next. So that's why I thought legal, even though I'm not a lawyer, is something that I need to fix. And I took the jump.
So you took this jump a little over 2 years ago, if I'm correct about that. Is that when you did the launch, you also did the jump?
Yeah, exactly. 2.5 years ago.
So on that entrepreneurial journey, it's not always, this perfect climb up the mountain. Can you tell us about a time that you failed and how you overcame that failure?
I think there'll be failures all the time, and I think uh, it's really just a question of framing failures as opportunities to learn or opportunities to try something different. And I think I don't know if it's necessarily been a failure, but one of the challenges has always been recruitment, because it's very difficult to find great people, and then it's very difficult to retain great people. So I think whenever we've hired either the wrong people, that's always been a challenge. And if we have hired the right people, but not for the long term, then that also is a challenge in itself. So um, I think I don't know what the best solution is to overcome these, but I think at the end of the day, it's just to keep the head screwed on and focused on what we're trying to solve, and then and just not panic at the end of the day.
So on that note of recruiting and hiring, do you find it hard to find experts in that? It's a new space, so there's a little bit more of R&D that you have to do in addition to just trying to develop a product. Like there's things that we don't know about machine learning yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think luckily we know a lot more than we did 5 years ago. And I'd say you can apply AI much more easily without needing all the AI expertise and knowledge. But I think in terms of finding experts, it's always going to be a challenge. And even if you do find an expert, they might not be a good fit for the company. So I think it's really important to maybe take your time when hiring, and it doesn't matter if you don't have that talent straight away.
So when you talk about hiring, do you focus, it sounds like you focus more on the culture and how this person is going to affect the culture. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we've made the wrong hires on the culture front, it affects the working environment, and then will affect the productivity of the whole company. And I think that's why it's really important to ensure that there is that positive mindset, because especially in a startup, there will be problems every day, and you really don't want to have any form of negativity.
Are you a remote company so you can hire anywhere in the world, or are you really focused on the job pool in your market?
So we have two offices, one in the UK and one in Spain, and we hire around those offices. So I guess we're getting the best of both worlds, but I think we're very much an office first company.
Do you find it, are you finding it challenging to hire? In the US, we're having like a huge problem finding talent in all industries. Are you experiencing the same thing in the UK and Spain?
I think it depends. Depends for the role, and I think that there will always be talent, and if the traditional areas for finding talent aren't working, then it just means we need to search for talent in new areas, or um, tangential pools which could translate well into the typical pool.
Thanks for that. Tell me, what's one thing in this business venture that you haven't expected to happen?
Um, I think I'm amazed that we've made it this far. To be honest, I obviously always wanted it to happen, but I think when you're building your product, you know that it solves a problem, but you don't know if you really will get customers. And we recently crossed 140 paying clients, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And that number keeps growing, and I just never thought that would happen. But it's not that I didn't want it to happen. It's just you just never know until it happens. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely it's kind of a sigh of relief when you start seeing all the money that you put out. Some of it comes trickling back in and saying, okay, maybe this will work a little bit. You might have already covered this, but tell us, what's a common myth about your business?
I think a common myth would be that the value of our business is in the templates that we provide. And yes, we provide lawyer-approved templates that can be used by our customers, but that's for us just what you need to build our type of platform. The true value lies in the data and the control over the data that we give our users, and I think that's something that we're working on, so that our customers view us as more than just a template provider or more than just a e-signature platform.
Yeah, some wins that you're able to compete in those spaces, but you're so much more than that. So besides hiring, what other challenges are you facing in the business right now?
I think as a startup, until you're profitable, it'll always be how do you generate revenue, and you need customers to generate revenue. So we're working on various strategies for bringing on customers, but to date, 90% of our clients have been organic. So there's a whole opportunity to develop our outbound, or even work with partners, and I think it's working out how do we build these functions without draining resources, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. It's that careful balance of both. How far do you go? That's too far. Where do you invest, and how can you get some short-term return and then the long-term return? So finding that. So your career just beyond Legislate, tell me, what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned?
I think being patient is maybe a bit of a boring lesson, but I think it is tempting to move quickly or accelerate certain parts of your career. But at the end of the day, there is a benefit in going slowly on certain things, and if you go quickly, you might burn bridges.
Tell me, what would it take, do you think, or what does it take for you, personality wise, or what's unique about you that somebody should have to be successful in a startup, specifically a technology startup?
I think the ability to learn quickly is really important, because in a startup, you do wear many hats, and you are very often building something that doesn't exist, or selling something which hasn't been sold before. So to succeed in a startup, especially like this, you need to be, on the one hand, able to learn quickly, but also self-aware, so that you know what you're learning or what to learn. And then with a bit of hard work and that ability to learn, then I'm sure you can solve anything.
And are you taking capital investment from investors? So there's kind of a sales on both sides of that too. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so we've raised venture capital funding. That was about a year ago, and I think that was a great validation of our technology and team. And yeah, we'll probably be raising from VCs again, so that we can, on the one hand, accelerate what we're doing, but also expand into new jurisdictions like the US.
So do you find that sales process of going and talking to VCs, how does that compare to just selling a product that already exists? Like, you're selling, like, I hate to say it like this, but smoke. Like, I promise it'll work. I'm going to bring something out of this. Like, how's that sales process go for you?
I think when you are smelling, it's not smelling, sorry, when you're selling smoke, I mean, first of all, you're selling opportunity,
Correct.
And then it just comes down to trust and conviction that that we're the right people to make that opportunity reality. So So I think being known within a network can help, having a track record can help, and having a good relationship can help. And by doing that, then you set yourself up for at least having a good conversation with VCs. But I also think VCs, they're not charities, they invest to make money. And so it's also a question of identifying the right VCs based on your sector, what you do, so that they also understand how they'll be able to make a decent return by investing in your company.
Yeah, so you're still selling the same thing ultimately, and that's trust. When you go to these VCs, it's so important to have that, especially when you're selling something that doesn't exist without their investment. So it makes a big difference. Okay, somebody's starting out in the technology startup field. What's a piece of advice you would give them?
Try to learn how to code. If you don't already know how to code, or especially if you're in a non-technical role, I think having some understanding of code will help. But I think the second best option is just to play with software products. There are so many software products that exist today. It could even just be Airbnb or Booking or whatever. And having a favorite tool and appreciating the UX, appreciating how it works, appreciating what you can do with those buttons is a great way of understanding how tech works and understanding the realities of tech, like bugs, releases, etc. And I think that's really important, especially if you're not technical. And then if you're somewhat technical, then it's learn how to code, because then it'll make your life so much easier.
So there's really tech startup founders out there who don't know anything about technology?
Well, I think technology is a solution for a problem, and so I do think there are founders that know a problem and maybe they apply technology to the solution, but they don't necessarily have a background in technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that good advice. So just a fun kind of jumping off question off of that. Tell us about your coding experience level. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, so I started with Python at university and in the previous company, but when I started Legislate, I learned a bit of Java and Angular to help our consultants build the first version, and I think I can dabble in code, I can understand code, but I definitely can't build a production grade software application.
Yeah, understand that maybe I stop at I can see some logic going on there, but sometimes I have no idea how to fix what we've just broken. So somebody fix it for me. Okay, so this couldn't have just come out of Charles's brain all alone. Can you tell us about a mentor or two in your life?
So I think the CEO of my previous company, Mind Foundry, Brian Mullins, is a mentor. He's a successful entrepreneur and from California, actually, and I think he's really helped me view well, I wouldn't say failures, but when something doesn't go to plan as a success or an opportunity to do things differently or as an opportunity to bounce back. So and I think he's someone who's always very calm, always very relaxed, regardless of everything might be burning, and he'll just stay calm and positive. And I think I tend to be more of a cynical person, and he's definitely helped me become more calm and optimistic, or view the light at the end of the tunnel, because as an entrepreneur, that's really what you need to overcome these problems.
Awesome. Tell me, what's one thing about your job, this startup machine learning that you've started with Legislate, that is unique to you? What's one thing that nobody else agrees with you about in your company?
Within the company, or
I would get some tech startups around you and they say, Charles, what, we don't agree with you. This is unique to you. What's What's unique about you that nobody else would probably come to this conclusion?
I mean, a controversial statement would be, I agree that work-life balance is important, but in the very early stages, it can become a competitive edge or a weakness, depending where that balance is. And but I also think it is very much connected to the founder, and it's not necessarily a requirement to succeed.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Tell me, what's an underrated tool that you couldn't do your job without?
I use a bunch of SEO tools because I love SEO, and a lot of our customers have come from search engine traffic, and I think Google Search Console is a great way to understand how customers are finding you. And it might be that by digging in the data, you can actually uncover new applications of your product that you didn't even think were possible, but Google thought there might be a fit and therefore recommended you. So and it's free, and I think it's very interesting, even if you are doing, for example, outbound sales or other types of outreach. Having that data can really help with the messaging or any hypothesis you might have on who to reach out to and what to talk about.
Google Search Console, the free tool, help boost your business. Okay, if you were to start another business tomorrow, what would that business be?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it would be either a problem that we've experienced at Legislate, or maybe I'd take a sabbatical and work out what it is I need to solve next.
So you're laser focused on Legislate. I love it. Is there any other occupation you'd be like, I'd like to try that one day, when I solve this problem?
I think there are, especially on Twitter, there are a lot of people who seem to be making a lot of money from all sorts of side hustles, whether that's a drop shipping business or a niche or affiliate website or whatever. And I think it would be interesting to be involved with one, but either from a distance or as an investor or an owner, or I don't know. But I'd say that wouldn't necessarily be a long-term commitment. It would just be more of a side project that I think would be quite interesting.
Maybe a venture capitalist one day here. So gotten to know a couple through the startup phase, I'm sure. Charles, I appreciate you spending some time with us and explaining Legislate to us and telling us a little bit about your story here on the Journey podcast. A couple rapid fire questions here at the end. What are 3 books you would recommend to the audience and why?
So I would recommend Never Split the Difference, because it's a great book just to get some quick wins with any negotiation. I would recommend Fooled by Randomness, because it's a great book to just understand randomness and not necessarily be scared of uncertainty. And I'd say, those are probably the 2 main books, because I do read lots of business books, but I think those are the 2 main books I always fall back on.
Most important. Okay, if I were starting a business today, what's some words of wisdom you would share with me?
It would be to create a safety net, because and that safety net can be funding, it can be savings, it can be customers, a podcast, whatever, just to have something to build your business in a risk-free or as riskless-free scenario as possible. Because if you are constantly worried about the survival of the business, then you can't really focus on the business.
Very true. So I ask a lot of questions on the Journey podcast. Charles, was there anything that you wish I would have asked you today that I haven't asked you already?
I think you've asked all the questions, and maybe you'll put it in the show notes, but it could be, where to find Legislate.
Oh, absolutely. It's already here. That's the next question. So
Okay.
where do we find Legislate if we want to find out what you're working on and see if it's something we can work with you on?
Sure. So we're on all socials, and there aren't that many companies called Legislate. So if you search us on socials or even on Google, we'll probably come up. And the website is legislate.tech.
Shouldn't be hard to see. He's got these some pretty cool SEO tools that he's playing with, making sure that he's being found out there and doing a lot of outreach. That's how we found each other, through some podcasting platforms. So you also have your own podcast too, Charles. Was watching an episode of that the other day. So
Not as professional as yours, but a great way to.
You're very kind. So
yeah, no, just it was an experiment, but it's an enjoyable process.
yes, well, go check out Charles. It's got just lots of information on Legislate. I love what it will do in the future, and I'm excited that when it comes to the U.S. market, that there's some products there that I think we'll be able to utilize in my own company. And appreciate your time here with us today, Charles. It's definitely a pleasure to get to know you, and excited to see where this product goes and where your career leads you.
Thank you, Nate, for having me, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
All right, thanks so much. Have a great day.